Last time the Los Angeles Galaxy were in first place was May 8th, 2005. Back then, I have a feeling Tom Cruise had no clue who the Galaxy were.
I'll tell you what, I bet you David and Posh, they knew who the Galaxy were.
Definitely. We're going shopping on Rodeo Drive this week on Extra Time. Welcome to Extra Time, everybody. Greg Lawless and Shep Messing here in the ET studios. We've got a jam-packed show this week, coming off of a DP happy weekend of action. Comebacks, red cards, new teams at the top of each conference, the big boys getting a couple of goals, a 70-yard Hail Mary from Bex, and a cheeky pass from Senor Blanco.
Greg, what a weekend, and I'm going to start by eating crow. I criticized Blanco when he came to the league. I'm now a converted fan. I'm a Blanco fan. I'd pay to go watch him. Tremendous weekend in a very competitive East.
Certainly. And don't forget Claudio Lopez getting a goal and Luciano Emilio getting a goal for DC. And we'll start in DC for the game of the week, a look at DC United. Before the season, they were several pundits' favorites to win the East. I think you can maybe point the finger this way. But a third of the way through, they're in last place. On Saturday, however, they got a huge win over Toronto, 3-2 at RFK. The Barra Brava, Screaming Eagles, El Norte, they made it every bit as passionate at RFK as the Toronto's fans do up at BMO Field. And the win ended DC's 4-game losing streak.
Greg, what a performance in the second half. The crowd was tremendous. They came out with passion, running off the ball. That's a huge comeback victory.
Well, the catalyst for them was Jaime Moreno, the Bolivian superstar. He's like a bionic man, this guy. I mean, he was supposedly over the hill. He was moving to Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or someplace over there, and now he's playing some fantastic soccer.
He's always been the catalyst for everything DC United does well. And Greg, I'd make the argument, with the ball at his feet, I don't think there's a better player in Major League Soccer.
Do you think he has enough to get through the season?
I think he's motivated. I think he's having fun. I think he has a passion for the game. So yes, I do.
Well, there was a lot of water cooler talk heading into this game revolving around Tommy Sohn's job. How secure was his job? Would he get fired if DC lost to Toronto for the second time in 4 days? I was asked that several times. Do you think this speculation about Sohn's job security was well-founded?
Greg, I do think it's well-founded, and I'll tell you why. New ownership, they demand results, and this was a start to the season for DC United that was not acceptable.
Well, in my opinion, I think actually that the win over Toronto was really important for them. You know, it got them off the schneid, obviously, but also it proved several of the things that Tommy Sohn was talking about. He was complaining about some of the injuries, Fred, for example. He was also saying that there wasn't enough heart or commitment and that Luciano Emilio was just not producing the goods. In this game against Toronto, all of that was set straight.
Well, I still think he's under pressure. He's got 3 games coming up where I believe he is still not secured. I think he's got to get at least 4 points out of the next 3 games.
Well, that's true. He has New England, Houston, and finally Chicago. 3 of the best teams in the league right now. Now let's look at the other side. Let's look at Toronto. It's a team that they had all their big boys, you know, the big dogs were barking and biting, obviously, right? Dikio gets 2 goals. Laurent gets an assist. Amado Guevara gets an assist. What do you think of them?
Well, first of all, I love John Carver. I love his emotional state, over the top a little bit. But when you talk about this Toronto team, they've been rebuilt with what I'd argue is the strongest midfield in Major League Soccer. Mm-hmm. You have Cole Robinson sitting deep, you have Edu, you have Robert, and you have the creativity of Amado Guevara. That's where it starts for them.
Well, they're certainly strong at home, obviously. They need to start stealing some points on the road. Now, at the end of the game, goalkeeper Greg Sutton made a mistake. That led to the match winner for Emilio. The coach, John Carver, he gave that sort of dreaded vote of confidence. Do you have confidence in Greg Sutton up in Toronto?
Greg, I really don't. I mean, the jury's still out. That's a mental mistake Sutton made trying to catch that ball instead of boxing it out. I thought the turning point of the game was Marvell win. What in the world was he doing? Santino Coranto beat him into the box. They're winning 2-1. 2 hands on his back, gave away a penalty kick.
Yeah, not very smart. Now, Toronto, you know, they have a big game coming up. LA comes into BMO Field this weekend. For DC, they go up to New England on Thursday on ESPN2, trying to make a statement that they're still contenders in this league. It's not all sunshine and smiles in DC, but things are looking a little bit brighter. Lots going on in MLS right now, so our news and notes are filled to the brim, and we'll start in the Big D. Last week, Steve Morrow, the coach for FC Dallas, got the axe, and over the weekend, the Hoops got a win for interim coach Marco Ferruzzi. They got 2 goals from Dominic Oduro in the last 10 minutes for a 2-1 win over Real Salt Lake. Shep, that's 3 goals in the last 2 games for Oduro.
And Greg, those were great goals. I mean, Oduro, the first goal, glancing header, perfectly placed. Second goal, the game winner for Dallas, took a ball down in space, cut it back to the right. Superb finishing.
Now, what do you think about Morrow's firing? I mean, do you think it was deserved? They were coming off a bad stretch. They hadn't won in 4 games, and there was a lack of heart on that team.
Well, Greg, I think it goes beyond that. I'm never one for a knee-jerk reaction, fire the coach. But once the coach has lost the locker room, and that's what happened in Dallas, that locker room was split. They were not harmonious, and once that happens, you really have no choice but to fire the coach.
Any names that come to the top of your head as a replacement?
I'd throw Dave Durr in there in a moment. I mean, he's from Dallas. He knows this league intimately. I think he'd do a great job.
Oscar Pareja also, he's with the U.S. national team program. He has some ties with Dallas as well. Now, the team that caused Morrow's exit was the Western Conference leading Los Angeles Galaxy. They beat Kansas City 3-1 and have scored the most goals in the league. Of course, they've also conceded the second most, which really isn't a tenable situation right now. Eventually, the goals are going to dry up, Shep, and they're losing some players to international duty. Landon Donovan says he's going to come back for Toronto's game this weekend in between the England and Spain friendlies. But what do you think of the attack in L.A.?
Greg, you start to analyze this team, and of course, we've been talking Galaxy all year long, Hollywood, Beckham, Landon Donovan, but I love what they're doing, and you add a healthy Edson Buttle, he's scoring goals. I like the way Gordon plays. To me, the real puzzle is when everybody's healthy, Landon Donovan, David Beckham, and Carlos Ruiz, is that an experiment that's going to send them through the roof, or is it going to self-destruct?
But they've got to find a defender at some point, right? I mean, all this attacking power.
Listen, I mean, if you keep the ball in the other half of the field, you're okay, but when you look at how prolific and dangerous they are going forward, maybe you get one good central defender, maybe one deep holding midfielder, and then they have enough.
Well, one of the things we saw this weekend, actually, is that they don't even need to keep it in the other side of the field. I mean, David Beckham, 70 yards out, and he fires it home. And I want to ask you, do you think that's an easy goal? Because some people have said to me, the goalkeeper's out, it doesn't really count, it was easy.
For David Beckham, it's easy. If David Beckham has that opportunity, he's hitting that ball on target 9 out of 10 times. I know I couldn't come close, and 100 times I wouldn't get it near goal once.
Well, probably true. Now, over in the Eastern Conference, there are 3 teams bunched up at the top: Chicago, Columbus, and New England. The Fire have the outright lead on goal differential after they savaged the Red Bulls 5-1 in New York. Cuauhtemoc Blanco was again the man. Which of these 3 teams do you think have the legs to carry it all the way through?
I always say New England, but I'm leaning to Chicago. I mean, Soumare and Conde as central defenders. I love John Bush in goal. Blanco absolutely dominating a game, and he's got players to play with. Justin Mapp, Chris Rolfe, Chad Barrett. I mean, I love the way Chicago's playing.
I'm going to start calling you Cuauhtemoc. I mean, Chicago now plus 13 goal differential, and they're undefeated on the road. And it looks a little bit more like Conde isn't really going anywhere, and really you can't blame him. There's nothing like winning and sitting at the top of the table to adjust a player's thought process. Well, remember, we always like to hear from you, and you can email us anytime at extratime@mlsnet.com. And it's right now time for us to get into the mailbox and see what pearls of inquisitive wisdom have come in. Several people have been wondering what Beckham's role actually is with the Galaxy. Sometimes he's on the right, sometimes he floats into the middle, and on Saturday, Ruud Gullit had him on the left for a while. Shep, what gives with Beckham's role on the Galaxy?
Greg, I think tactically, LA needs to let him go wherever he has to go. Against New York, he was shut down. He played on the right day. Vandenberg marked him the entire game. I think Beckham wants some time and space on the ball, so I would say let him go any place he wants.
So give a player of that caliber the freedom to roam, basically. Right?
Absolutely.
Well, we'll stay out in the West, and Jessica in San Jose asks, how about the Quakes' huge win over the ex-Quakes? That'd be the Houston Dynamo. Is that enough to get the momentum rolling for San Jose?
Great win. But don't get too excited. I love the Bay Area, San Jose, close to San Francisco.
Nice weather.
Nice weather. But you still need some more on the team. I think they're lacking, Greg, although I like the way Ryan Johnson played. Big, strong, physical, getting at defenders.
Yeah, it's exciting, fun to watch.
They still need a real catalyst in the central part of the midfield, and they need, I think, another big striker.
Well, that's probably true. Kai Kamara doing well, but they probably need some more. As always, though, please email us with anything that's on your mind. The address, again, is extratime@mlsnet.com, and we'll try to get to it ASAP. Now, right now, it's time for Shep's Wow Moment of the Week.
Well, every week we have great goals and great saves, but this time it's Chicago against New York at Giant Stadium. Blanco. I am absolutely in love with this guy. Plays the ball off his rear end to Chad Barrett. Absolute perfection. Wow.
It's sort of a different version of a back pass, if you will. Definitely a wow moment. Now, that's about all the time we have for you today on Extra Time, but we'll leave you with a few of the more recent long-range bombs and a classic from one of the all-time greats in MLS.